In the last episode, we spoke about how to know if your parent is actually narcissistic. And as promised, today I am back here with you to talk about some important tips on how to navigate a toxic or narcissistic parent. Now, as a quick disclaimer, you will hear me use toxic and narcissistic interchangeably. And that's because I'm not too keen on being stuck on labels. Labels are beneficial to a certain extent. It helps us to put language to our experiences. However, we don't want to become so stuck, so concrete on the labels that we lose focus. And the focus is, when we talk about narcissists or toxic people, it's really about just determining, is this person healthy for my well-being, my emotional well-being, my psychological well-being? So before we get into these important tips about how to navigate a toxic or narcissistic parent, one thing I want to emphasize is that the standards that we set for ourselves transfer across all relationships. So what does that mean? The same type of behavior, the same type of experiences that we tolerate in our family relationships are often mimicked in romantic relationships. So when we talk about healing from toxic and narcissistic relationships, that involves looking at all of our relationships, how we treat all of our relationships. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get into these important tips on how to navigate a toxic or narcissistic parent. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Nailah. I'm a mental health therapist turned toxic relationship coach. And after overcoming my own experiences with narcissistic family and romantic relationships, I am also passionate about helping women like you heal after a toxic relationship and breaking the cycle of toxic relationships for good. So the first step, or the first tip that I recommend for dealing with a narcissist or toxic parent, is to get clear about what you want and how this relationship affects your life. So when I talk about knowing what you want, I know that's a very broad statement. We hear that a lot. But when it comes to relationships, or really anything in life, but we're focusing on relationships here, it's basically getting clear about, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my circles to look like, right? I look at relationships as rings, right? We have the inner circle, kind of like the earth. You have the core, you have the outer layers, you have more outer layers, the crust, etc., right? So the people that are closest to you are the people that have the biggest impact on you. What do you want those people to look like, right? You're not treating everyone the same, or at least you shouldn't, right? The way you treat your spouse and your children, they are more in the core. Then you have your best friends, and then you have, your relatives, and relatives sometimes fall into that core, but maybe they need to be a little bit further out depending on how they affect your life, right? And then you have associates. So you really want to look at, what do I want my inner circles to look like? For example, after I went through my healing journey from toxic relationships, narcissistic relationships, I had to realize that there were people in my life by default. And that can sound a little mean, but there are people in your life by default, right? There are people that are attached to other people that you know. There are people attached to you because of genetic connection, right? Relatives. However, sometimes there's not really a match. There's not really a benefit in the relationship, or a mutual benefit in the relationship. And I had to get to a place where I had to say, okay, these are the people in my life, but who is really feeding me? Who is really fueling my soul, right? Where it's a reciprocal relationship. It's a healthy relationship. They are an asset to me as much as I am an asset to them. And when I say asset, I'm not talking about tangible, monetary, materialism, but just overall spiritual, emotional, psychological, inspirational type of people that can really fuel and feed the type of person that I am trying to become, which is a better version of myself. So once you go through your own process in healing and you figure out what you want out of life and out of relationships, your relationship circle, then you need to look at, okay, this relationship with my narcissistic parent, how are they affecting this world, this atmosphere that I'm trying to create for myself, right? If you're all about personal development, we're always trying to improve ourselves, and we want to make sure that our surroundings and the people in our life are in alignment with that, right? So now when we look at a narcissistic parent, we have to ask ourselves, okay, how are they fitting into that? Are they sabotaging my efforts? Are they distracting me from what I'm trying to do? Are they really benefiting me, or are they actually working against me? And this is a hard question to ask yourself, because society says we have to feel obligated, we have to tolerate whatever it is certain people give to us, whether it be parents or siblings, anyone that is closely related to us. But if you are radical about your peace, if you are radical about, creating this peaceful, pleasant atmosphere in your life, this is something that you have to do. This is an important first step and a tip on how to navigate a toxic or narcissistic parent. How is this person affecting the atmosphere that I'm trying to create for myself and for my family? So once you've completed that first step, that first tip that I just gave about how to deal with a narcissistic parent, the next tip or step is to ask yourself, is it safe or is it healthy to keep this person in my life, and to what extent? Now, I encourage you to keep these words safe and healthy very much in the forefront, because this is what makes it a little bit more logical about when we're dealing with toxic or narcissistic relatives. In this case, we're talking about parents, right? Because again, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of obligation that comes along with how we deal with narcissistic parents and narcissistic family members, because society says we're supposed to tolerate it. But when we keep it really simple, right? When we really simplify this idea, this perception, these decision making, is to look at what is healthy and what is safe for me, right? And a lot of times when we talk about health and safety, we're thinking about physical, right? We're thinking about physical, medical safety. But what about emotional and psychological safety, right? And psychological health. So again, that second step is it safe and is it healthy for this person to be in my life? And once you decide yes or no, then the next question is, if you do decide, yes, let me try something, then the next step is, should we go minimal contact or no contact? And we're going to go further into that in the next tips. So tip number 3 on how to navigate a narcissistic parent is minimal contact. That is one of the options after tip 2. Step number 2, the third step is minimal contact. And that's in its name, right? So you're having contact with the person, but it's minimized. It's not the same as it was before. And what can that look like? That means you are probably not around them as much. You are setting boundaries with how often they come over, how often you go over to them. You set boundaries with how often you speak to them on the phone, how much access they have to you in general. Now, this can be challenging because this involves setting boundaries. And again, society tells us we're not supposed to set boundaries with people that are close to us, especially the people that brought us into this world. But again, if you're looking at your peace, your mental health, your emotional health, this is something that you may choose to do. And this is a form of minimal contact. Now, because I love you, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be transparent with you. Narcissists will never fully accept your boundaries, okay? They will tolerate it for a certain amount of time, but it is inevitable that they will eventually try to break those boundaries. So my recommendation to you, in order to make sure that you maintain your boundaries, I believe in the power of pen and paper, writing things down, making a list for yourself, whether you do it in the form of a journal, on a piece of paper, wherever it is that you can have access to it, of why you are even making this decision in the first place. You are not even watching this episode because you just feel like it and you just feel like cutting off your parent, right? That is not the dream of any child, any adult child, is to cut off their parent. Most adult children, dream about having their parents in their lives, fully in their lives, forever, right? To be raised around their children, their grandchildren, to be involved in their life. So you are watching this because enough has happened that has shown you that this person is actually unhealthy for you. And because they are unhealthy, but you're still trying to keep a balance and keep them in your life to some extent, you are figuring, okay, if I'm going to keep this person in my life for my own mental health, I at least have to set some boundaries. Now, when you start to feel weak and you start to feel guilty, because they will try to use guilt against you, that is where that list will come in of reasons of why you're even taking this step in the first place. Now, before we go into the fourth tip on how to navigate a narcissistic parent, I want to be transparent with you. What I share here is not always fluffy and pretty and comfortable to hear. But I owe it to you to be honest with you and to be transparent with you, because I want you to get the same results, the same healing, the same ability to move forward and create a peaceful atmosphere for yourself in the way that I have. What I want to share with you is that minimal contact, as we've been speaking about in tip number 3, yes, is an option, but quite honestly, it's not an option that I recommend for most people. Because with narcissists, they come with automatic negativity, right? No matter how nice they seem in the moment, there is always an underlying motive. And that negativity can come across to you in a simple 5-minute conversation on the phone, right? They can bring gossip to you about other family members. They can say one thing to you to trigger something in you, often where you don't even understand. Now, something to also think about is that your parents raised you. They brought you into this world. They saw you from infant to adult. So they know a lot about you. They know a lot about your buttons. They know a lot about your insecurities. And narcissists in particular, they store a library of data on you. And not because they care and they just want to know, about their child and how to help their child. They keep that information in order to exploit you, in order to use leverage to manipulate you. So it is very dangerous. It's basically like letting a thief into your house. You know they're a thief, but something in society says you got to let the thief in your house. But as a thief is walking around, you're looking around, you're following them because you know at some point they're going to put something in their pocket, right? That is an unhealthy way to live. That is ongoing stress. That means you have to live on guard all the time. And for me personally, I don't want to be on guard. Whoever is in my space, whoever is around me, whoever is in my inner circle, I want to be at peace. I don't want to feel guarded. I don't want to have to watch every little thing that I say. I don't have to want to question everything that the narcissistic person says, right? Because we're talking about many of them lie a lot. Many of them make up stories about other people. And again, whatever they say and do, there is always an underlying motive to control and to manipulate. And with you knowing that, again, that puts you in a position now to always have to be on guard. It's a personal decision whether you go minimal contact or no contact. But if you're choosing to go minimal contact, this is something that I encourage you to keep in mind. So the fourth tip to navigate a narcissistic parent is, if it's not minimal contact, it is going no contact. And that is obviously in its name, cutting off all contact with this narcissistic parent. This is usually a step that people take when they feel like they have tried everything. They've even tried minimal contact and they are exhausted. They are tired. They are drained. They don't want to still have the same narrative about this parent that is causing so much strife and so much conflict and so much emotional pain in their life. They are tired of it. They are fed up, right? And this is a really hard decision to make for a lot of people because, again, this is not something that you imagined, that you wanted, right? This is something that society says is actually wrong, right? But if we are looking at parents as human beings, which they are first and foremost, and for us too, I'm a parent as well, right? I'm my daughter's parent, but I am still first a human being. If she gets to a point where she realizes my mother is draining the life out of me, I am exhausted, I can no longer take it, I've tried. At some point, people say enough is enough, right? Now, not everyone. Some people go through their entire life. I have heard stories of women or people in general in their 60s and 70s. Well, let's say 60s. Their 60s still struggling with narcissistic relatives, right? So it's up to you to decide, how long do I want this complaining to continue? For me, I don't like complaining about the same thing over and over. I am about growth. That is my mission in life, is to continue to grow. Right? So if I find myself complaining about the same thing for year after year after year, at some point I have to hold myself responsible to say, okay, Nailah, this is the same thing. What are you doing different, right? If you want something different, you have to do something different. So this is going no contact, or for those that are exhausted and they want to do something different because they don't want this to be their story anymore. They don't want this to be a topic of conversation anymore. So while this is a very difficult decision to make, to go no contact with your parent, right? It's not something anyone is born into this world wanting to do. What makes it easier is the change in perspective, right? So what I mean by that, right now, you may be looking at it from a perspective that this person brought me into this world, this person raised me, regardless of their issues, I owe my life to them. The perspective that I use, that I consider actually more fair and healthy, is that, one, I only owe my life to God. God used my parents as the same way he used me for my daughter, as a vessel to bring the children into this world and to raise them to the best of our ability. But we don't owe anyone, any human, our life. That's the first part. The second part to that relates to the first tip that I spoke about knowing about what you want, what you want your inner circle, your support system to look like, what you want that core of people to look like, right? So that perspective of these are my requirements for the type of people that I want in my life. For me, I want people that are safe, that are emotionally safe for me, that I don't have to feel guarded around, that I don't have to worry about, are you lying to me? Are you saying something that is going to be used to manipulate me? Do I have to watch what I say because you might use it against me in the future? Is your love for me convenient and conditional? Because that is something you see with narcissistic parents. Their love is often conditional. When they're in a good space and they're getting their way and what they want, they're very nice. But the minute they feel like you challenge them, they go from friend to foe, right? They turn from your support system to your enemy. They try to sabotage you, right? So that works against my requirements of the type of people that I want in my life. So again, being really clear about the type of people that you want in your life will help you to have this new fair and healthy perspective. Why I say fair is that my requirements to be in my life and to be close to me is pretty simple, right? Don't lie, don't hurt me, don't manipulate me. These are basic requests. I'm not asking for a lot. And for those that really want to be in my space and in my inner circle, all they have to do is honor that. That's all they have to do. And now I'm putting the responsibility back on you. So instead of looking and feeling guilty and like the bad child, you're actually being an adult and setting clear boundaries and clear requirements about this is what I want in my life. And this is not only for parents, this is in general, your friends, anyone, a partner. This is what I require to be in my inner space. And either you honor that and we have a great relationship, or you choose not to honor that and then you lose access to me. And that is the perspective that makes it a little bit more logical, a little bit more fair to you and healthy, right? Because sometimes we're taking on all the responsibility as the adult children that I have this obligation to keep this person in my life because they gave birth to me or they brought me into this world and they raised me. Fine. Say thank you for everything you've done. But if we're going to continue this relationship, these are my requirements and they're basic. You're not asking for too much. And manipulative people, narcissist, toxic people, they will make it seem like you're being too much. You're asking for too much. Asking for honesty, asking for fairness, asking for genuine love, unconditional love, asking to just not have to be on guard that you're going to try to sabotage me or manipulate me or bring drama into my life. You're not asking for too much. Those are the basic requests. So don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're doing too much. You're not. If anything from this episode about tips to navigate a narcissistic parent, if any of this resonates with you, if any of this sounds like something you've been through or something you're going through now, or questions that you have, comments that you have, go ahead and leave a comment in the box below. Check out the description box below to also get connected to me. If you want more direct access, some support to discuss these things, I have a free membership group where I go in there pretty much every day, or at least I tried to. I've been going in there much more lately. But either way, you can get direct access to me where we can talk more about this topic. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time a new episode goes up. And make sure you share this with someone that you know is going through this. I think at this stage of my life, I'm almost 37. I know at least one person, many more in my field, but I think we all know at least one person, unfortunately, that has a toxic or narcissistic parent. Thank you for joining me on this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.